Hi, welcome to Community Empowerment. I'm Roberta Martin, your host. Today with me in the studio is Chief Executive Officer, Minnesota Community Policing, David Singleton. Gentlemen, you're welcome.
Hi, Roberta. Thank you.
I would like you to just tell us a little bit about Minnesota Community Policing.
Minnesota Community Policing was legally established in 2014. And I just want to read the mission statement, and that'll give you an overall view of what we do. Minnesota Community Policing Services carries on activities primarily in the areas of public safety, crime prevention, and community-oriented policing. This includes building positive, sustainable relationships between citizens and law enforcement, working with government, businesses, and community organizations to achieve and maintain a safe and enjoyable quality of life. That's the overall goal and objective of the organization.
All right, just can you elaborate a little bit more of the objectives and goals? And can you tell us also what areas you say?
Okay, first, we are a nonprofit organization, and we're organized under the 501c4, and that's a lot of people may not be familiar with that because a lot of the nonprofits are 501c3s, which fall under charitable organizations. 501c4 is a little bit different. It's a very significant designation, and the two main areas that you have to qualify to be a 501c4 is, one, you have to be performing some type of community or public benefit whose principal feature is lack of private benefit for profit. And the second thing is the organization carries on activities in public safety, crime prevention, housing, and community development. Now that's the legal definition. And there's one more thing that the 501c4, which is us, that we can do that a 501c3 can't, is we can take positions on public policy, and we can engage in political and campaign activities on behalf of a candidate that's running for office who supports our goals and objectives.
I see. Well, would you mind telling us some areas that you cover in the state of Minnesota?
Our jurisdiction is in the state of Minnesota, and so we can work within any community within the state that we're either called into, or there's areas that some of our special consultants see of concern. And so primarily we've been working in the Roseville, Brooklyn Park, Brooklyn Center. We've done some things in Crystal. Haven't made it over to Minneapolis quite yet, but there is some things that we're looking at over there in light of some of the recent problems that they've been having.
I'd like to know whether you have some partnership. How do you, if you do have partnership, how do you establish partnership within these communities?
Our organization is independent. We're governed by a board of commissioners that is sworn in, and they set the policy for our organization, and they have the overall responsibility of supervision. And so we don't have permanent partnerships, but we establish partnerships as needed. When issues arise, we partner with the police department, with various governmental agencies, businesses, citizens, just a wide variety of partnerships that we do establish.
Let's go a little bit more into details on how you do establish these partnerships. How do you go about doing that?
Well, it usually starts from either a complaint that our office receives, or we have what you call special consultants, and I can elaborate on that a little bit. Our special consultants are licensed peace officers, reserve police officers, protective agents, and citizens that are trained in areas of specialized service, and they're the rank and file of the organization. Our special consultants act as an additional set of eyes and ears for the community, and work on various issues that are of interest to the public. And so when they're out on patrol or they're assigned to certain areas and they come across problems or areas of concern, or we receive a complaint, then we sit down and we meet with the parties, and we assess what's needed. And usually that involves bringing in the local police department, or it may involve there's some areas that have district councils or community councils, and we work with them to try and put together a plan to resolve whatever problem is at hand.
It sounds like you are doing a lot of things within the community. Let's talk about some few things you've done. I mean, give us an example of certain things you've done. I know you have mentioned a lot about how you go about it, but let's talk, give a specific example of something you did within a particular city. Let's say something that took place in the city of Brooklyn Park, or maybe Crystal, and what the problem was. I don't know if it has to be too private, but can you really talk about something like that?
I can give you a general overview. There is some details of the cases and issues that we work on that do have a privacy aspect to it. But
okay.
For example, we're working on a racial profiling situation out in Eagan, the city of Eagan.
Okay.
And that's where a mall has racially profiled people of color,
okay,
and have accused them of theft. And we received a complaint, and we investigated that and found that in all cases, in all those cases, which was probably about 4 or 5 incidents, when they were stopped and checked, they didn't have anything.
Okay.
And so there looks like that there may be some civil and human rights violations involved, and so that's an active, ongoing case. We worked most recently the Barway Collins case out of the city of Crystal. We were involved in the search efforts for the missing child, and unfortunately, he was found deceased. And what we did was we instructed the volunteer searchers and made sure that any potential evidence that they may come across was not compromised, so that justice could be served in the case. And we also, I worked as an advisor to the Liberian community, and we, myself and a couple of pastors and just the advisory group were instrumental in getting the biological mother of little Barway Collins here to the United States, so that she could participate in the funeral and the burial, and there's an ongoing prosecution now at this time. And we also provided security detail and advice to her, because she's new here in the U.S. And we're no longer acting in official capacity. However, we still do keep in contact, and we provide whatever support and advice that we can.
I'd like to go back and talk about the example you gave about racial profiling. Mm-hmm. So in a situation like this, when your office and other people that you work with, I'm talking about the police department and different people you work with, so in such scenario, when all is said and done, what next? What is the next thing that takes place? Does it go to the district court, or does it go, after what you have done, after you get done with what you do, where does it go from there? I mean, where do you go from there?
Well, what we try and do is we try and one of the divisions we have is mediation and arbitration. So what we try and do is we try and mediate the complaint and bring that issue to a resolution without it going to the court system.
Okay.
and you know, the courts are full, and a lot of times it's a long process, it's an expensive process, and so what we try and do is mitigate the financial burden, you know, that that the parties would have, and come up with a with a solution that makes sense to everybody.
And you do this working hand in hand with the police department or other
With
agencies?
the police, with businesses, with the parties, citizens. It may be a citizen problem. It may be a citizen law enforcement problem. It might be, you know, there's a wide variety of different things. But in the end, is what we want to do is we want to get to a win-win situation for everybody involved.
I realize you're a very busy person and it takes me forever to get you in here. However, I understand that it's because of the nature of your job. So I'm thinking currently you probably is working on something. Are you working on something that you would like to talk about?
Well,
in terms of what we're talking about here.
Well, there's a few different cases right now that we just most recently we were asked to review a homicide case that that the family does not believe that well, what happened was that it was ruled a justifiable homicide, self-defense, and the family doesn't believe that that was the case.
All right.
And we've reviewed evidence that that calls into question the way that the case was investigated and the decision that was made. And so our special consultants who have training in those areas are looking at that right now at this point, and they'll make a recommendation to me on how we'll move forward. And so I've been very busy with that. We also have something else that we do that's unique. We have a law enforcement exploring program, and that's for youth. Now, the law enforcement exploring program has been around for a long time, because when I was 15 years old, I was an explorer with the Ramsey County Sheriff's Department. And so that's where I started my law enforcement career at. And so now we have a certified law enforcement explorer post, 3934. And just a little bit about that is it's for young women and men ages 14 to 21 that have an interest in law enforcement. And so what that does is it's a career educational program, but it's also hands-on. So it's a little bit of classroom, some hands-on, and then what happens is every year there's a competition. There's a national competition in Rochester with all the Explorer posts in the state of Minnesota. And what they do is they compete in different areas, you know, like traffic stops, there's report writing, there's canine, there's narcotics. There's just a wide variety of police training that these explorers receive. And so what that does is a couple of things. Is it you know, allows them to make a decision on whether or not they actually want to be in law enforcement. And if they decide not to be in law enforcement, the training that they receive, you can still apply it towards anything that you do in life, because it's about citizenship, it's about leadership, it's about conflict resolution, it's about learning the criminal justice system and how it works. And so we're real proud of the fact that we are the only non-police department that is certified as a law enforcement explorer post. And so we have 10 new recruits, and they're looking forward to starting the academy this September.
That sounds great, but I am thinking that what is the reason behind this particular thing concerning the youth, the law enforcement explorer thing that you mentioned? What was the main reason behind why you came up with something like that?
Well, in addition to the fact that I was one myself, and I got a lot out of it, and it was very valuable to me. I come from a good family, and I had a good support system. Some kids don't, and this program allows them to have a support system as well. If they don't have one at home, it allows them to be a part of a positive group that provides support to each other as well as to the community. And I believe that the things that we teach them is beneficial for them in life. And so some kids that don't get that at home, they will certainly get it by going through our program.
So going through your program, do they have to pay, or is there some kind of incentives, or is there some kind of money that helps, or resources that help them? Is it free? Can anybody call you and just say, I want to get into this particular exploring thing for this youth. I want to be part of this. Mm-hmm. What are the steps that they have to take to get there? Do they have to pay some money, fill some application forms? How do they go about it?
Well, there is a nominal application fee, which is $10, okay. And they fill out an application. They have an interview before our law enforcement advisory board, and then they're either denied or accepted based on the criteria, and if it's a good fit for both of us, and then there's no cost. They don't have to pay for classes or anything like that. It's not like college where you have to pay a tuition or anything. The classes are free to them, and we also provide them uniforms, and so those are also at no cost. Mm-hmm. And so it's a good opportunity for somebody between the ages of 14 and 21 to gain this type of knowledge and be a part of something positive instead of being on the street, being a part of something negative.
Yeah, sure. So what are some disqualifications? What can disqualify a candidate? Has it got anything to do with being a felon, or what is it that?
Well, we would, our post is, we are really putting an emphasis on at-risk youth. And so what that means to us is that maybe some of the kids may have started on the wrong path. And there's many different reasons why that may have happened. Not because they're bad kids, but just maybe the product of their environment. And so what we do is our law enforcement advisory board takes a look at the circumstances case by case. And now, obviously, if we have somebody that applies and they have an extensive criminal record, a violent criminal record, that would disqualify them. Mm-hmm. Because we would also provide resources to and work with them maybe to, like I said, get on a different path. They may not be eligible at this point just because of what has happened to them, but if they're serious about making this a part of their life, then we would do what we could to try and help them get on the right path, and then maybe eventually then they would qualify.
I like to revisit this question and ask you again. Mm-hmm. I like to talk more about that because it looks like, from what I'm hearing from you, you are trying to help the community. You are trying to help troubled youth. You are trying to help people get out the street and, do something with their life. So there are some people, and you mentioned some people didn't have a good upbringing. Mm-hmm. You gave an example of yourself, and you mentioned how you came from a good home, you were raised well. Well, some people may not be as fortunate, maybe, as you and I may have been, because maybe the parent were not home. Maybe the mother and father were somewhere in jail, and somebody else is raising them. Maybe they happen to be in a foster home, Life have been really twisted, know. And so in a situation like this, someone may find his or herself in trouble. Maybe in the past they did something wrong, and now they are a felon. But for now, that situation is not pending, or maybe that person is not doing that anymore. When you're young, you do a lot of, excuse my language, things that you don't need to do. Right. And then you get to a certain stage in your life and you want to make a transition. If someone like that pick up the phone and call you, and say, I really want to get into this program, I really want to do this, but in the past, I have done this, I have a criminal record, how do you do this? And I know you said you direct that person to a different path, but what if this person is really interested in turning their life around? We got to give help to people, people need help.
Right.
So how do you do that?
Well, like I said, on a case-to-case basis, the Law Enforcement Advisory Board would make a recommendation to me in terms of the situation, the circumstances, and I know that because we've all made mistakes.
Absolutely.
I mean, and we've all done
Sure,
things that if we had a do-over, we probably would do it a lot different than what we did.
Right.
And when you're young, and when you have problems, and when you're the product of an environment that you can't control, then sometimes those things happen. And society sometimes throws you aside and doesn't always give you the opportunity that you need, because sometimes that's all people need. It's for somebody to believe in them and to give them the opportunity to do the right thing.
Right.
And so I'm a very strong supporter of that. And so I'm not going to say that that just because somebody has had problems in the past, that will automatically disqualify them from being a part of our program. However, because we do have the responsibility of safety and keeping others that are involved in the program safe, we wouldn't want to, put somebody in harm's way. So that's why I said we would have to evaluate that and try and do the best that we could to work with them and help them accomplish their goals and objectives.
I see. Thank you. Let's go back a little bit and visit Minnesota Community Policing. Do you have board of directors?
We have a board of commissioners, which is the same as a board of directors.
Okay.
And it's a 9-member board, and those board members have what we have is we've got 9 different areas of service that we want our commissioners to have a background in.
Okay.
1 is public law enforcement. 2 is private law enforcement.
Okay.
3 is education. 4 is a faith-based organization of some kind, whether that's a minister. We actually have 2 ministers on our board.
Okay.
5 is health and human services. 6, Department of Corrections. 7, judicial. 8, business. And 9 is attorney. And so all these areas are life experienced areas, and so our board is diverse, in that area, and they all have something different to offer, and we put that together and develop policy that's going to be in the best interest of the community.
How is it such an importance to Minnesota Community Policing?
You want to repeat the question?
Okay, you mentioned the specific areas that an individual who is a board member must be able to fall within these criteria. So how is this particular, descriptions here very important to Minnesota Policing? How does that connect to what you're doing?
Well, I think it's important for the diversity aspect of it.
Okay, sure.
Because in our life, at least we believe that these are things that you should have,
right,
or at least be knowledgeable in. And so so with the health and human services, obviously that has to do with your health. I mean, if you don't have your health, then there's not a whole lot more you can do.
Right.
And Department of Corrections, that we get consultation from them as far as the issues that are being dealt with now in the criminal justice system, and some of the ways that we can assist with that.
Right.
Faith-based is, I come from a family of the ministry. My dad was a pastor, and I've got uncles that were pastors and great-grandfather, and we were raised with that foundation.
Okay.
And I think that not to force that onto anybody, but I think that at least they should have some sort of knowledge and understanding, and then be able to make their own decision, when they get older.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And then obviously law enforcement is very important to the community policing aspect of what we do.
Thank you. I have read in the newspaper a lot of problems that have been going on in North Minneapolis. Mm-hmm. And it's not to single a particular city out, but I think it's a troubled city. Mm-hmm. I think that a lot of problems have, there's a lot of youth violence and gun violence in the city of North Minneapolis. Have you considered, doing something in North Minneapolis?
We are actually taking a look at that. It's troubling that they've had several, not just shootings, but killings. I mean, in the last 30 days.
Yes.
And so we're just actually taking a look at that at this point to see what exactly is the problem. And and a lot of times, it's younger people, that are carrying out these heinous crimes, these shootings. It's a lot of it has to do with drugs. A lot of it's people being on drugs. Mm-hmm. A lot of it's not having that family positive support, role models. Mm-hmm. So we would have to look into each situation and see exactly, how they have come about to feel like that they have to handle their problems by killing another person. Mm-hmm. And what is it that makes you not value human life?
Right.
Because that's a big concern for us. Mm-hmm. When you can look at somebody and just take their life and go on about your business. Mm-hmm. That's not a normal way of living.
Right.
And so I'm very concerned about the issues in North Minneapolis, and in the coming weeks, I'm sure that we will be meeting with the community in North Minneapolis. Mm-hmm. and the officials there, and see what we can do to help reduce some of that street violence.
All right. Mm-hmm. As I sit here and listen to you talk about North Minneapolis, there are a few things that keep ringing in my mind. I think that when we are able to help with education, mm-hmm. Jobs, mm-hmm. And you talked about family support. Mm-hmm. If we have all these things in place, and I know there are many more, education, family support, employment, mm-hmm. because a lot of these people, the reason is because maybe majority of them don't even have high school diploma, mm-hmm. And again, it might be some problems with, family, or it could also be that, resources, mm-hmm. If we have all these things in place, maybe that can help a little bit. What's your thought on that?
Well, I think that it goes back to what you were saying earlier about, some of these kids that have records already. Mm-hmm. They're felons already at 15 years old.
Right.
And then when you start down that path, then what that does is then it disqualifies you,
right.
for employment.
Right.
Because the first thing that most people do nowadays, I mean, is when you fill out an application, they run a background check on you.
Absolutely.
And a lot of people can't pass that background check, even if they have stopped doing what it is that they were doing before. So, I mean, I think that then it turns into a survival thing, because you have to eat.
Right.
You have to take care of your family if you have one.
Right.
You got to have some place to live. And if nobody's going to hire you, if everybody's going to hold your past against you, you know, then it leaves you where?
Right.
I mean, it leaves you to do
What you can do to
what
survive.
you need to do to survive.
Right.
And so there has to be some changes made in the government. There
Right.
has to be some legislative changes
Right.
to be able to allow people those second chances, you know, that they need to be able to be gainfully employed.
Right.
You can't just tell somebody, don't sell drugs, go get a job, and then every job you apply for, they don't hire you.
Right. Because you
mean,
have a problem.
Right. I mean, you have to be able to give them an opportunity to be able to do something different.
Right.
See, and so that's a lot of what we have right now is a lot of the problem. And you know, because like you said, I mean, when you're 15, 16, 17, you know, maybe even in your early you know, 20s, I mean, you know, you're a different person than you are
Right. Absolutely.
when you're 30,
Right.
35.
Right.
You know, I mean, but some of that stuff follows you throughout your life. And if somebody's not willing to give you a chance, if somebody's not willing to give you an opportunity, then you go back to survival mode, and a lot of times that's not a good result.
Right, and I'm even thinking about people that are young mothers. You know, I'm thinking about women right now. I'm thinking about women at age 15 that have 2-3 kids already, and they are also felons. I mean, so think about the generation that is coming. We have a big problem. You know, what you talked about is a real problem. They can't get the job, they can't get an apartment, you know, because they have felons, they have domestic violence, all of these things. So now what do? You know, a 17-year-old boy and can do nothing. I mean, 18 or 19.
Right.
And your life is stuck, you know. So if we keep getting them into jail because they were selling on the street because they're trying to survive, and they end up in prison, and the prison are getting full, and yet people keep going there, there's a problem. So I'm thinking, how does your office, you know, I know you can solve all the problem, but how do you, is there some kind of resources? Do you connect with the government, or, you know, what is it that you can do?
Well, I think it's based on what is each individual's circumstance, because everybody's circumstance is not the same.
Right.
And so I think you have to be able to take a look at it again on a case-by-case basis. I mean, you can't just generalize these things. I mean, because sometimes there's specific reasons for why these things are happening. And so you have to look at it on an individual basis, and you have to find out what it is that has brought the person into the situation that they're in now.
Right.
And do you want to change? I mean, do you want a better life? And the people that I talk to, and I talk to a lot of people on a daily basis, most people will tell you, absolutely, I want a better life. I mean, most people don't wake up and, you know, want to be a killer.
Right.
Or a gangbanger or a drug dealer. You know, I mean, they don't wake up and say, that's what I want to be when I grow up.
Right.
But if that's all you see while you're growing up, then that's when you become a product of your environment.
Right.
You see?
So we're going to take them from the environment
Right.
that is creating the problem,
Exactly.
and put them into a different environment
Right.
that can shape their life, reshape their life.
That's right.
Okay. All right. You know, I looking at your background, you have a lot and tons of experience in human services, you know, and so many things. I can say more than you can say, you know, and I know that you did run for office last year. You ran for the office of Minnesota Secretary of State, and you lost by a very tiny, small margin. You could have made history. Have you been thinking about running again? Maybe a different office? Or
Well,
the same office?
Well, and it was a good experience for me. We did lose by a very small margin. And we did make history because I'm the first African American that ran for the office of Minnesota Secretary of State. So we did make history.
Maybe
we
I
just
have to
didn't.
congratulate you on that before you continue. So congratulations for that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And politics has been something that I have been interested in for a while, and I have held some community offices. I was with the district council in the city of St. Paul, and I had to run for election for that. I was there for 4 years. I was appointed to the Roseville Human Rights Commission and served almost 8 years in office there. I'm currently on the Ramsey County Personnel Review Board, or the Appeals Board for Ramsey County. And so politics and public service has always been something that's kind of been a part of my life and a part of my family's life. To answer your question, right now at this point, I'm focused on Minnesota Community Policing Services because I believe that with the things that are going on in society today, that we're needed, and we need to start building positive relationships, rebuild relationships that are now broken. And I believe that we are in place and have the ability to do that. So right now I'm focused on that. However, I'm not going to close the door on a possible run for office again. I don't know whether or not Secretary of State is a 4-year term, so it's still a few years left with the current Secretary of State. There's other opportunities out there, city council, mayor. I have not closed the door on possibly running for a local office. So I guess I'll have to get back to you on that, Roberta.
Okay, that sounds great, but I want to dive a little bit deep on something you mentioned. You mentioned about your public service, experience and really things that you are even doing right now, And I'm not saying that this, it's embedded within the office of Minnesota Secretary of State, but, that was an office you ran for.
Yes.
Okay, so that tells me that you were telling the public that you are capable of doing what it's, written, whatever duties of a Secretary of State is. So have you considered trying to, give a call to your opponent who won, and maybe think about working together with him? Maybe there are some areas you can, some advices or some kind of help you can give to him, or have you thought about trying to give him a call? Because I mentioned interviewing you here last year about the same thing, and you have said that your doors are open and you would like to, if there's an opportunity out there. So I'm asking again this time.
Okay.
Are you thinking, have you thought about trying to give him a call and say, hey, this is what I'm doing here within the city. I think that I can be of help to you.
We had, my campaign had some specific things that we wanted to do to enhance the office of the Secretary of State. Primarily, it's an administrative function. It's if you start a business, that's where you go and file your business and pay your fees, and they do several other administrative. Their voting is a big thing. They certify the elections in the state of Minnesota, and so yes, to answer your question, that is on my list of things to do. Is to reach out to Secretary Simon, and I wanted him to get in the office and kind of get things get settled in first, before I contacted him and met with him on some things. It's been almost a year or a little over a year, I guess now.
So I think he really settled.
So I think he's settled. He should be settled anyway. So I am going to reach out to him, and I'm going to discuss with him some of the ideas that our campaign had to enhance the office, and I think that he'll be receptive to those.
I think he's a very nice man.
Yeah, and because the community was very receptive to that. I mean, making the office more visible in the community, and within the youth, we were gonna have an entrepreneurship program through the Office of Secretary of State, and since that's where you go to file your business, we were going to do things to encourage the people that have, because there's a lot of people that have talent and expertise that could turn that into their own business, and we were going to tap into that, and so that's one of the things, and so I think Secretary Simon might be interested in some of the things that we were going to do, and we might be able to work together on some of those things.
Right. I think that it would be very nice and very important that he knows, and perhaps he knows, what you're doing with the youth and how you're trying to get troubled youth out of the, the situation and rechange their life, reshape their lives, and even bring, some changes to troubled cities like, North Minneapolis. I'm very sure North Minneapolis is one of his concerns as well, too, So I think that it would be a good thing to do, to call and to let him know what you're doing. Now, then my next question is, with the city of North Minneapolis, are you working hand in hand with the mayor of the city of Minneapolis?
Not currently, but that is something that in the upcoming weeks that would be one of the people, obviously, that would be a part of the initial meeting that we would have is the mayor, because the mayor is the chief executive of the city, and the chief of police reports to the mayor in Minneapolis, and so those would be some individuals that we would certainly want to sit down and talk to. And one thing that I think that people have to realize as well is communication is a big thing, and everybody doesn't receive information the same way. You see, and so you have to be able to communicate with somebody in the way that they can receive the message. Otherwise, you can talk all day long, and if they can't understand what you're saying, then nothing's going to change. And so communication is one thing that we that we specialize in when it comes to these type of special circumstances, and so that's one of the things that we're going to be discussing with the mayor and the chief of police and other interested parties. Well,
since you mentioned about communication and how important it is, I like to go a little bit further and about North Minneapolis. I think I realize North Minneapolis is also a federal concern because I have seen our president, Commander-in-Chief, President Barack Obama, he had been in North Minneapolis before and talked about the shootings and things going on. I know it may be probably very, I guess it may be very much of a, let me just phrase it a different way. I think it would be difficult, maybe, for the sake of what I want to talk about now, I guess it may be very prolongated if you have to reach the president, that distance because it's a federal concern. Have you thought about reaching to, our Senator Al Franken? Because I'm very sure that he is aware that North Minneapolis is a federal concern. So have you thought about that too?
I have. Because I think that that we're going to need as many people that can provide the change and the assistance that we possibly can. And so we have thought about Senator Franken, and I believe that that he is equally concerned, just like we all are. And so, like I said, when we have that, that first initial meeting, I think we will, I can come back and share some things with you, some ideas, and once we get more involved in exactly how to solve that problem.
Because the next time you come back, I like the public to know that North Minneapolis is going to get better. I like businesses to come to North Minneapolis.
Right.
Just like other cities, like the city of Roseville, the city of Brooklyn Park, that is thriving.
Yes.
Golden Valley. I just want North Minneapolis or any other troubled city to just be the same as other good cities. We can walk our dogs on the pathway there. We can walk into the stores and not worry about somebody just taking stuff from us. We can sleep, go to sleep and just have some good sleep, not thinking that somebody's going to just run into the house and kill somebody or shoot somebody. Our kids can run in the street and play just like other cities. So for me, I want the public to know what we can do, or what you can do, or what other people can collaborate to work with you to enhance their lifestyle in North Minneapolis and reshape the life of people there. I want Walmart to come there. I want the mall, another mall, to be over there, just like we used to have a little mall in Brooklyn Park.
Right.
The Chinese restaurants. We have to have the same thing. People don't have to drive distance to go somewhere. When a city is having a problem, businesses don't come.
Right.
You see, and when there are no businesses, people don't have a job. And when there are no jobs within cities, the city start collapsing. Pretty soon there won't be a North Minneapolis. But I hope that things will change.
When people are unemployed, it's a concern of public safety, because that means that they're doing something that they shouldn't be doing to make their money.
Right.
What I will say is that the incidents that you hear about are usually it's not normally a situation where people are just going around arbitrarily from neighborhood to neighborhood, from person to person, and shooting people and that type of thing. Normally, when you hear about those type of incidents, it's usually like a drug-related situation. Drug deal went bad, a gang situation. Maybe it could be territories. It could be a violation of some bylaw within their organization. It's not a just where somebody's just going around and just looking at somebody and just shooting them for no reason.
Right.
Even though I know that has happened in other areas, but these situations that we're talking about in North Minneapolis are isolated incidents.
Okay.
But they're multiple
Right.
isolated incidents.
Right.
That have to do with the same thing.
Okay.
Different players, same thing.
Okay.
Yeah, and so we don't want the community to think that that they can't go out and walk their dog, or they can't go to the store, or, go about living their life, because usually it's the kids against each other.
Okay.
You see what I mean?
Right.
Or you disrespected me. You said something I didn't like, or you looked at my girlfriend and I didn't like that. And then like I said, you got drugs involved. And then they're mixing drugs with alcohol, and then your mind is just not focused. You're not thinking right.
Right.
You're not thinking straight, and so that's what we said earlier, where you have to take the person out of the environment, and you have to change the way that they think about things.
Okay.
You see what I mean? And you have to show them that there's a different way to handle these issues.
Right.
And it doesn't make you any less of a person just because you want to sit down and talk it out instead of shooting it out. So.
Well, we out of time. We have about 9 minutes.
Okay.
I would like you to take about, with all due respect, to take about maybe 3 minutes. And we said a lot of things. You know, I like the public to know, particularly the youth. You know, somebody may be listening to you and thinking, I need to get into this program. How do I go about it? Who do I call? Who do I contact? Where's the location? You know, Minnesota Secretary of State is probably listening to you right now. What do you have to tell him? I guess Franken is also maybe listening to you. We don't know who is listening.
Okay.
So in a nutshell, take 3 minutes and just tell the audience what you want to tell them.
Well, as far as our contact information, is our headquarters is in Roseville, Minnesota, but we do serve the whole state of Minnesota. And our dispatch number is 651-485-9211. And you can reach us 24 hours a day with any emergency situation. And then our email address is communitypolicingservices@gmail.com. And so that is our contact information. And as far as, what was your second question?
As far as the rest of the people are listening to you, as far as Al Franklin is concerned, as far as Minnesota Secretary of State is concerned, as far as the general public is concerned, and the safety issue.
Well, just to let them know that there's more than one way to solve problems, and we all need to work together
Absolutely.
to do so. And we need to be open-minded, and we need to put all ideas on the table and be receptive to change. You know, change is a hard thing sometimes for people to do.
Right.
But you have to be open to that in order to get a different result. And so Minnesota Community Policing Services is one vehicle that you can use to, if you want to make a change, if you have problems that are going on and you don't feel like that, you know, people are listening to you and you need that outlet, you need assistance, then we are one of those organizations that will listen, and we will do what we can to, because we're problem solvers. And that's one thing that we will do.
Thank you so much. Next week you are coming back. Is it next week? Next week you are coming back to talk about the incident that happened with the Liberian young Liberian boy that got drowned in the water. And you will be coming here with a mother and some of the family members, so we can dive a little bit, because I know that the media did a good job, but I think I want to take it a little bit further and explain into details, you know, but also being careful about privacy, and to talk about what is in the mind of the general public.
Okay.
People that are thinking, what happened? How did that happen? I mean, people that are worried and scared, you know, family members that may be even distant, that may be thinking, for me, I have 2 little boys too, and I worry about such things. So I'm thinking that it would be a good thing to let the audience know. Can you just take a minute and just talk a little bit about that? And prepare the mind of the audience for next week.
Okay. Well, as we were talking about with other things, is you know, there's a lot of things that are happening these days that are just going way beyond people's comprehension. And I think the Barway Collins case, I think, is one of those situations. I think that people are still trying to wrap their head around the fact that you have a father that stands accused. And how could you do that? You know, I mean, what is it? What type of person, I mean, could do that, especially to their own
Absolutely.
child? Now,
Yes.
we want to make sure that, this is, it's still going through the criminal justice system. It's alleged, You know, it either hasn't been any conviction yet. But I think that the mother of the boy is she thought she was doing the right thing for her son by sending him to a country where dreams come true.
Absolutely.
And something went terribly wrong. And so we're gonna talk a little bit about how she feels about that, and how her life was in Africa, and how their relationship was. You know, I mean, we want
Right.
to find out. You know, the public wants to know a little bit more about, you know, the background of the situation. And so, so there'll be a few things that will be discussed, and that I think that will be of interest to the public.
Right, and we are going to be very careful in making sure that we respect privacy, but we also want to know what is life after this whole situation. How do you live through this? You know, it's my concern, because we are women. You know, I can speak for women. Women are very emotional beings, and you know, we are more of the caretaker. You know, we brood over issues for a very long time. You know, so for me, I think about when all this is said and done, how do you sleep at night? How do you go to work and function humanly? You know, how is your social life now? You know, and how do you live through this kind of pain? I can't imagine my little boy gone. I have 2 little boys, you know, and I don't know how life is going to be like, you know, and I like to know and encourage other people, you know, with their problems. Maybe it might be a relief for her also to talk about it.
Well, and I think it also too. I think it drives the point home, is that you have to be very careful about the person you choose to be with in life, and the person that you
Absolutely,
choose
sure.
and the person that you choose to have children with.
Absolutely. I totally agree.
Yeah, so that's you know, that is, you know, we don't always know in the beginning, you know, that we're making a mistake, but I think that there's signs. I think there's, you know, there's issues that arise that you know, you know, that make you feel like that maybe you should do something different. So
Thank you so much.
right.
Thank you, David Singleton,
And thank you.
Chief Executive Officer, Minnesota Community Policing. Did I say
Yes,
it right?
you said it right.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay.
It took me forever to get you here.
Well, I'm
But
glad
I'm
I'm
so
here.
thankful. I'm so thankful. You had
Okay.
so much information, and I can't wait to get the rest of it next week.
Okay, sounds
Thank you
good.
so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for watching Community Empowerment. It's been wonderful having you. We'll see you here same time next week. Thank you.